One. What is going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Masculine Health Solutions Podcast, where I am joined by the Rabbi Alfredo Borodowski, who knows a thing or two about psychology, might have a Ph.D., as he's told me, and let's just say he knows his way in and out of psychology, and that's exactly what we want to be jumping into today. Why? Because he has a lot of personal issues that he has overcome that he's going to tell us a little bit about. But first and foremost, how are you today, Alfredo?
I'm doing great. Great. It's a beautiful day today in New York after a storm all night long. But I love to sleep while it rains. Then I had a good night. And it's great to be here with you, Conrado. I have a PhD. The PhD is in philosophy,
Yeah.
but I have also a social work therapist
Yeah.
degree. Then I mix ideas and therapy. That's my passion.
Which makes actually perfect sense because when we kind of investigate human behavior, human psychology, we always have to go back to the ideas. And I think one of the biggest questions is always the why. It's like, why do we do these certain things? Why do we go back to analyzing what we did in the past and why are we doing certain things now? And how does it play into the lives that we're living now? Which kind of, and that's why it stood out so much to me when I started to read your biography. It's like you had all these things lined up, but for some reason, you still, they got labeled the bipolar rabbi and a lot of different issues that happened in your life. So let's open up with you telling us about your story and, how this journey of yours really began.
Yes, sometimes there is a before and after, and there is a before and after in my life, and that before and after has a very, very precise moment. This happened in 2013 on July 19th. I was arrested. And after I was arrested, a new chapter in my life began. I was wrongly medicated.
Oh no.
I lied to my psychiatrist. I told my psychiatrist that I was depressed, but I was manic. And
Oh
you know that
no.
one thing about mania is that you don't want to give it up, mania is seductive. You like the energy, you like the optimism, and I wanted to keep it. Then I went to the psychiatrist. I am completely depressed, and I got Lexapro, okay, an antidepressant, and full of mania. And my Lexapro, I went into full mania. And one of the things that I did is I began impersonating a police officer.
Oh boy.
It was one of my congregants, a retired detective, gave me one of those shields, friends and family shields, okay, which I tell you they should be illegal. Okay, why are you giving to your family a replica of your shield? For what? Okay, for when another officer stops you and then give you some kind of privilege because you are married to a police officer, okay, which I think in a country based on equality, okay, that should be absolutely banned.
Yeah.
But but I got it. I was manic, and as soon as I held it, I felt, oh my God, I am now part of the power structure. And I was actually stopped by a police officer for going through a stop sign. And I showed him my badge, and he basically said, "Go." And
Wow.
when that happened more than once, I said, I am part of the police department, and I began policing the highways of New York. Okay. And I began telling people how to drive, showing my badge, and change lanes if you're driving too slow, stop texting, and never touched anybody, nothing violent. But until one day in the town of Mamaroneck, I showed my badge to a young lady, and she made a phone call, okay? And less than 10 seconds, I would say, I had three patrols behind me. And
Wow.
later on, to make things short, when I got a restraining order against, that lady, and I Googled her, I realized that the policeman that arrested me was the fiance of
Oh
this.
boy.
And
Oh no.
rather of all the people I could have showed my badge on that day of the thousands of cars, I showed my badge to the girlfriend of the officer in town. Okay,
Oh
maybe
god.
that was a blessing, by the way. That was a
Maybe.
blessing
Maybe.
because it stopped. Okay, but I was arrested. I was hospitalized.
Mm-hmm.
I was fired from my job
Oh man.
because I was a rabbi. I was on the press all over, made it to CNN, made
Oh
it to the
boy.
front page of newspapers in Japan and Ireland as the rabbi impersonator of police officers. They were very, very kind of clever headlines. The non-kosher arrest. And things like that. And
Oh god.
it's funny today, but in one of the news shows on at night, I heard Bipolar Rabbi, and I adopted the name. But what is interesting is I didn't have a diagnosis.
Interesting.
Okay, then I was bipolar without knowing it, and I was manic without knowing it. And only then, when I was hospitalized for the first time, I was diagnosed as bipolar.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had 4 cases against me in different courts for impersonating a police officer. I had 8 months of living on my couch with major depression as the cases were going through the court system. As I said, I was fired. I was suicidal. I didn't see any hope in life. Everything has collapsed. I was a very well-regarded speaker and lecturer
Mm-hmm.
and everything was canceled. Nobody would reply my emails. Basically, I was blacklisted. Okay, I was canceled.
Yeah.
No explanations. I had no chance to explain anything. I was stigmatized immediately, made into a criminal, and for 8 months, I tell you, I was living in darkness.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of the questions I have that you obviously, you went through that difficult situation, but how did that moment when you finally got that diagnosis for the fact that hey, there's something more here than you probably even know? Because prior to that, you said that you did not know about what you had. What did that moment look like, and how did they assess you? How did that whole situation come about, even?
There is a lot written about yes or not, pros and cons in terms of diagnosis. And some people believe that when you get a diagnosis, you basically are pigeonholed, called, and basically you're constrained, and basically you're repressed by the diagnosis. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
then there are people who are against a strong diagnosis. I tell you, I celebrated. I won the lottery.
Yeah.
When they told me I was bipolar, oh my God, thank you. Now I get it. Okay. Now I can go and research
Yeah.
what I have. Now I have a language, a conceptual framework. I can go to group therapy and express myself. And then from my perspective, actually was a moment of elation, of happiness. Clearly, you pay for it. There are consequences because society is ruthless,
Yeah.
and once you are in some way, you know, in my case, actually, because of my lawyer's advice, I had to make public that it was bipolar to explain my behavior, not to justify it because I was wrong. but to explain my behavior. Then I was pushed out of the closet
Yeah.
and what I did actually, I said, okay, this is who I am, what I can learn from it, and let's bring dignity to it. I'm not going to be a victim.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to assume who I am or part of who I am, and I'm going to transform it. I'm going to become an agent, a positive agent within the struggle.
Interesting. So obviously you kind of realized that you had this issue, and it's interesting to me too is that you embraced it because you didn't run away from it. I think that's one of the biggest things that came about from the story, that you had to go through it, you suffered through it, and then you're obviously, well, something isn't right, but at least, kudos to you for having the balls to say, you know what, I have an issue, I have to deal with it, and you tackled it head on. But initially, what did that kind of look like in regards to your life starting off and realizing that, okay, you know what, I have this issue, I have to deal with it? What were some of the starting steps that made you, I guess, change your vantage point into embracing it and taking care of this issue and, moving forward, not running away from it and not doing anything like impersonating a police officer again? What did that recovery process kind of look like?
I am a kind of strange animal, okay? First of all, I am an immigrant from Argentina. I am Latino, okay? And as such, I know all the struggles of being an immigrant. I came here with a scholarship to study, but with nothing, okay, with a few pennies. And I was given the great opportunity of scholarships and, of work and learning in America. I am now an American citizen, but I know what is to learn a new language, what is to have cultural shock, what to be lonely, not having friends, not having a network. Okay, then I have this experience of the immigrant. Also, I am Jewish, and I have also the experience of the Holocaust, the experience of being anti-Semitism, of being rejected, of being an outsider, okay, and having fought for 2,000 years to survive and to create, a very enlightened tradition. Then I come from two traditions, which are about struggle and survival and overcoming. And I think that it's a strange combination of my Latin roots and my Jewish roots that make me a very resilient person. And I tell you, Conrado, I went through 8 months of hell, and at moments I lost all hope, and I was hospitalized several times. But one thing that was decisive is that I was a congregational rabbi from, of a small congregation, and the congregation did not fire me.
Interesting.
Okay, very interesting. The congregation said, we know Rabbi Alfredo, we know who he is, we know on the power of repentance and forgiveness. We know his core, we know his essence. We understand that this is part of an illness. And not only they gave me a second chance, they embraced me. I am the product, I am the witness and the product of the power of community.
Yeah.
Of love of community. I owe my life literally to my congregation. And that kept my faith also going. Okay, then there were people who believed in me,
Yeah.
no matter what, and that was, I think, the tipping point into going forward.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I think without community, we really do struggle, being by ourselves. And even to your point where you mentioned, even those in those 8 months of darkness, at least you had somebody that out there that believed in you. And I mean, what better positive reinforcement than having a good community that says, hey, you know what, Alfredo? You might have messed up, but that's okay. We're still going to embrace you because we know who you are at your core, and we know that you have these issues and you are not these issues, And I think that's one of the things that kind of happens with mental illness or anything else in regards to stigmas and stuff sometimes, that people will just, they'll throw the baby out with the bathwater and just say, hey, you know what? Nah, he's no good. He's broken goods, get rid of him. And I think what's beautiful is that your congregation said, no, he's broken, but he needs healing. And I think that's no better way to actually approach the situation, because that second chance is probably what helps you really move forward.
And I would say, Conrado, also that it's not only that people see you as a broken or damaged goods, it's that we who have the mental illness begin believing that. And we impose that belief upon ourselves. And then
Wow.
we begin thinking that we don't deserve love.
Wow. So
And it
it's
is a cycle that nourishes, an evil cycle that nourishes itself in between, I don't deserve it and they don't like me. Okay.
interesting.
And when you get into that paradigm, it is very difficult to get out of it. Then there are two things that I think that we need to always keep in mind. First, what I call the permission to be human. Okay, we are not perfect. And then we have to give ourselves a break. Okay, I did wrong. I almost destroyed everything. Okay, but I am human. And I have to give permission to myself to be human. Okay. And the other thing that we need to show compassion towards ourselves. Okay,
Yeah.
we need, and the third thing that, by the way, that want to add is that we need to be curious about ourselves.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. Yes.
okay. Once somebody told me the most important sound in English. Okay, this was a woman who was a top executive at IBM, and she said, Rabbi, she was a congregant, actually past president of the congregation. She said, I go to teach you, Rabbi, the most important sound in the English language. And she said, hmm. That where, oh my God. Okay, that was a great moment. And then sometimes when I was going through the worst, I look at myself and I said, okay, and shifted my mood from
Yeah.
blame to curiosity.
Yeah. Because it's funny in starting this podcast and in starting this journey for myself. It's been a lot about curiosity. It's been a lot about figuring stuff out. And the more I talk to different people, it gives me a different perspective on things. The problem I think is when too many of us silo ourselves and start to believe the lies along with our personal truths and think that's all there is to it. But you're right, when you go, I don't know about that. Let me look into it. All of a sudden, everything changes and your perspective changes, the vantage point changes, and all of a sudden, you get these beautiful people that come and talk to you and change your perspective on things. And I think that's the beauty of life in itself. At the end of the day, it's all about experiencing and experimenting and doing all these different things, right? So it's very interesting to me to hear you say that subject, because I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I mean, part of finding wisdom in your struggle, which is the leading, I think, idea that animates me, okay? That people with a mental illness are explorers of dark caves that other people do not have access to. And that's the metaphor I use. That we're exploring caves, dark, profound, that other people cannot get, down there. And what we do, we get into the dark cave and we try to survive, which is
Yeah.
natural.
Yeah.
Okay. And then when we get out of the cave and we have a minute of repose, we try to enjoy that minute and forget about the exploration. And we waste, okay, the opportunity of asking, okay, what gifts do I bring back from darkness?
Yeah.
Okay, and there is so much wasted experience because I tell you, Conrado, one thing is that I find very frustrating is that in the sphere of mental health, the leading voices, and this is not wrong, but the leading voices are professionals. You go to a congress or symposium, it's all about and the books which are are all about psychiatrists and psychologists, okay, which is great. Clearly, they're the experts, but us, the one who experience the mental illness, we're experts too.
Yes.
And sometimes we have forgotten that we are the main experts. Maybe we do not know the science behind it, but like you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, you know, the ideas and philosophy and experience behind it. Okay, and you want to talk to somebody about hope and courage and resilience and darkness and light and uncertainty. Who better than us that have explored that in the most extreme way?
Yes. And the reason why I agree with that full heartedly is that it's one thing to have the theory down, all the data, all the written things, which is fantastic. Like, I'll 100% agree. You know, it's great that we have all the data, theory, whatever. But it's another thing to have actually gone out and experienced what it is that you're talking about. And that's what I think is a lot more relatable for people that are going through the same situation as you, or have gone through the same situation as you. You can come back with the wisdom, right? It's kind of like you said, you went into the cave. Now you came back. And now people are more like, all right, I could talk to a psychologist who studied this, or I could talk to this guy that went out, lived it, came back, and he's in good shape. I think I'll go with the guy that's lived through this difficult situation.
Lou, you know, if I had to give one message to somebody who's listening and who has a mental illness of any struggle, is you are a master of life. You've been at the University of Life. Okay, and your degree is Master of Life, and everybody with a mental illness is a Master of Life. What happened is that we have not yet learned the process or assumed the process by which we translate experience into lessons.
Yeah.
It's more about what happened to us and survival than how can I articulate my experience into lessons that can help others. And what happened a lot is that we are called by organization to tell our stories for educational purposes or to fight against stigma, which is great, by the way, and I've done it many times. But there is a difference between telling your story and telling wisdom out of your story. And we basically are detained, we are stopped at telling the story.
Yeah.
That doesn't make you a master of wisdom. That makes you a storyteller. That makes you a paradigm. That makes you an exemplar. That makes you, you know, a case. No. I want to go a step further. Okay, let's now work a little bit deeper. What is the wisdom behind the story? That's not being done.
Along with the actionable steps, because that's what I love to hear about. Because I mean, that's kind of why I started this podcast as well. Was just I'm looking for solutions, right? And that's kind of why, you know, I decided I want to talk to as many people that have solved these issues, have gone down the road and said, hey, you know what, this may be unconventional, but here's the truth, here's my story, but here's the wisdom inside of it that you can pull from it and actually take it to the bank with you and do whatever it is that you want to do and live a successful life. And to your point, which I think is beautiful, be a master of life, which is why I think we're here. But the one thing that this kind of draws me back into was what I had here in my notes was positive psychology. Tell me more about that and how that really played into its way into, you know, your journey and your discovery and your wisdom.
Then after almost 8 months of depression, basically having moved to my green sofa, which basically on a fetal position for hours and hours and hours, one day I go up to my study room, and don't ask me, Conrado, why. I just felt a force pushing me there. And I get to my desk and I found a file lying there. Now, don't ask me either who placed the file there. As far as I can tell you, it wasn't me, okay? But was there. And I opened it. I found the results of a positive psychology test I had taken 2 years back.
Interesting.
And again, what are the chances? How it got there? I don't know. Believe in angels, okay? Or maybe my mind is blocking it, but it was there. And I read. This is called the VIA, the Values in Action instrument, which is free online, by the way. And I will, if people wait to the end of our podcast, I will tell you how to come to my workshop, free workshop on positive psychology, which I'm going to be giving next month. But I look at the results of the VIA at what is called the 5 top strengths, what is called the signature strength. And they were creativity, curiosity, love of learning, courage, and perspective. And I look at the results and I said, something went on, a switch on my mind. I said, from the deep depression, I read the result and I said, oh my God, I have forgotten who I am.
Wow.
Okay, I had lost complete sense of my core, of my essence. A week later, in the midst of depression, I registered for social work school.
Interesting.
Based on the results of my VIA instrument and based on my experience with social workers who had been also my saviors for all this period. And I went to social work school. I was rejected from many of them, by the way.
Interesting.
And some of them, as they knew my story, rejected me. That's something I would not like to dwell. I won't like to say that at Delphi University actually embraced me and actually saw that my story was a positive to become a social worker.
Mm-hmm.
And I was still depressed. I was still struggling, but I went through social work school. I was awarded in 2016 as I graduated the award for what is called the Inspiring Award, which is the main award given for leadership and inspiration and advocacy.
Nice.
Then you know, I felt so proud and it gave me so much encouragement. Then positive psychology is a science that studies what it works. You know, for the first 100 years, psychology focused on trauma, neurosis, what is going wrong. In 1998, the president of the Association of Psychologists in America, Martin Seligman, came up with an obvious but not asked question. Why aren't we studying what it works? Why we don't study flourishing and joy and happiness and courage and resilience? There are hundreds of papers on what it goes wrong, and nobody's doing serious studies on what it goes right.
Yeah.
Okay, and he invited 50 of the top scientists on sociology and social work and psychology and philosophy and religion, and they studied documents on what is valuable and virtue in societies across geography and times. They even study Harry Potter. And they study the Boy and Girl Scouts programs, and they studied the Bible, and they studied the Quran, and they came up with 24 strengths that are present across history and geography.
Interesting.
Which are the universal strengths of humanity. Okay, amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, they were able to determine that the strengths that unify us as humans. And then a few years later, they came up with the VIA, the Values in Action instrument that you take. It takes only 30 minutes, and it gives you the 24 strengths that you have in hierarchical order.
Interesting.
Okay, and then the top 5 are your signature strengths, which are the ones that you use most. You feel more comfortable and authentic. And you know them because we also know that 2/3 of people are blind to the strengths. People do not know the strength. Okay, and we know that if you know your strengths, you are 9 times more chances of flourishing If you know them, not applying them, just knowing them, being
Wow.
conscious of them, and you apply them, you had 19 times more chances of flourishing. Then
Wow.
we are in a crisis of strength blindness, okay? And we are actually most people are 9 times handicapped on their ability to flourish, okay, on an instrument that take 30 minutes, okay, and is million of people have taken it, and is valid, okay, and constant according to scientific standards, okay.
Yeah.
It's not a TV guide kind of I don't know if anybody knows what TV guide is anymore, okay.
Anymore, yeah, I remember that back in the 90s.
This is the real thing. This is a real
Yeah.
thing. And if anybody can take, I think it is at diacharacter.org. Dia is D as in Victor, IA, character.org. Okay, Dia Institute. You just go to their website and you take it for free.
Yeah. Interesting, man. I mean, that's a lot to unpack there. But the first thing I find captivating is you're right. It's almost like we've been beat down, and we always focus on the negative side of things. Because when I think psychology, when I think mental health, I always think about the stigmas. I think about the worst things possibly related to it. I'm like, I always think the worst, and it's always from a negative perspective. So it's very, very, and that's one of the things that popped out to me when I was reading your profile and everything, how you discover positive psychology. I'm like, that got me thinking. I'm like, wait a minute, positive psychology. What's that even about, man? Like, because I'm so used to hearing it more from a negative standpoint. And
people are hopeless. People are hopeless, Conrado. I mean, there is a crisis of hope. Okay,
yeah.
and here you have a tool and a full, approach, scientific, reliable. Okay, that brings you from despair to what is strong in you.
Yeah, which honestly, the reason why I find it so captivating and what you just mentioned right now is kind of like, wait a minute, hold on. If I know this about me, that will automatically make me so much more successful in life because now I know what my strengths are. And I think we're always curious, or at least I'm always curious, to learn more about myself, learn more about the people around me, philosophy, always going back to the why. And I think it's very interesting because then when you stop and you go, I wonder what this could possibly entail. I wonder what the impact could be. You start asking these questions from a positive perspective. I think it really, really does change a lot of the ways that you look at certain things. But that kind of draws me into my next question that I kind of want to get into now is when you're working with somebody and they tell you about all their issues and all the negative things, how is it that you start to break down like this is the direction you should be going, let's do a positive psychology test? How do you go about working with people that come to you as a coach and say, hey, I need help?
Yes, first of all, you have to be honest with yourself. If there is an issue here that has to do with trauma, okay, it's about or neurosis or somebody who has a pathology, then clearly it's not for me.
Yeah.
Okay, then I am very selective in terms of helping somebody because I want to respect the person and help the person.
Yeah.
Okay, and I know the limitations of what I can offer. Then if somebody wants to but if somebody is depressed, for example, okay, clearly I would suggest the person to go to a psychiatrist, okay. But in addition, okay, we know, for example, this is through the work of Professor Martin Seligman, that is the creator of positive psychology, that depression is connected with what we call explanatory style. It's a very important term, explanatory style, which means depression is connected in what story you tell about your life. Are you telling yourself your story of your life as a tragedy? Are you telling yourself your story? Which story are you writing? It's like I like to say to people, we spend most of our life in our minds.
Yeah. Which
Okay,
is true.
True. That's a place where we spend most of our time. Then what story? We are all writers, script writers. We write a script about our own experience in life, and that's called the explanatory style. And depending on which kind of style you have, if you're going to write a tragedy about your life, you're going to live a tragedy.
Yeah.
If you're going to write a romance, you're going to experience love. And if you're going to write a comedy, you're going to have a good time. Okay, then people need to understand, first of all, what kind of writers they are. And sometimes what happens is that because you begin writing the story around the age of 2, maybe we become writers, when according to what kind of parents we have, parents who are attentive to us, or parents who are not attentive to us, parents who love us, we begin writing stories already in our mind, with stories through feelings, okay? In terms of, life is being abandoned.
Yeah.
Okay, life is about insecurity, or life is about being loved. Okay, that happens very early, before we are actually fully rational. Then we begin being writers so early that we at some point keep writing without knowing the style we write in, and becomes an automatic writing. Then one of the things I do with people is first to determine what kind of writer are you. Okay, and once you know what kind of writer you are, you can maybe change the style, okay, and change the kind of writer you are. Okay, and positive psychology, by giving you a chart of your top strengths, then you begin exercising them, okay? And one of the things I tell people is set your phone, your alarm, 4 times a day, okay? And each time the alarm goes off, you stop and ask which strength I have used in the last 30 minutes.
Interesting.
And if you do that for a week, Conrado, you are going to have a pattern of strength.
Interesting.
And you're going to begin being able to discern how you work on the strength domain. And believe me, I've done it with a lot of people, and they are amazed. Oh my God, I didn't know that I use so much courage. I didn't know that I use so much humor. I didn't know that I was so curious. And at that moment of self-knowledge, okay, then you begin maximizing your strength. And what happened, you become sensitive to the strength of others.
Interesting. Well, yeah, because then now you're able to say, hey, you know what? This person's on my frequency, or he's on my vibration. And it's almost like you can line up.
Or you become also more flexible, and have
understanding.
more understanding and more tolerance, because you begin to appreciate, the strength of others. Then it's a big change. And people, we are in a crisis of ignorance of the self. It's a paradox. The self today is the biggest one in the history of humanity. We have the iPad, the iPhone, selfie, okay? Then we have maximized the self. It's the biggest self in the history of humanity, but at the same time, it's so big that it's lonely, because it doesn't allow for anything to come close to it. It occupies all the space. Wow. Then we need to understand that, and also is so big, the self, that becomes the target of everything. We need to understand that the bigger self at the same time presents itself as the biggest target.
Which makes sense because it's so vast, right?
Okay, then it doesn't give space for anything else, and at the same time, it's the target of everything else.
Wow.
And what positive psychology does is also paradoxical. It tells you what your strengths are, but also make you humble. Because you begin saying, I have these top 5 strengths, which are my core, but I don't have at the top the 24 strengths of my. I need somebody else who has the other strengths to have a full life. Then it gives you a lot of confidence, but it gives you a lot of perspective. Perspective, and it centers you.
As it should, because it's kind of like what I find when my confidence started to grow, over time. When you're younger and you're kind of more cocky, but it's almost like arrogance. You're putting on airs, and then the older you get, the more confident you become in what you're able to do and your abilities and all that. But there's a humility that usually comes with it. It's almost like I'm really good at certain things, and I'm not going to put people down who are trying to do the same things as me, because you realize, like, hey, this is a strength that I have. He may not have it, right? And that's kind of where the tolerance factor comes in as well, because that humility needs to be there. I mean, for myself, I kind of feel like I came pre-programmed with that. So it's like I'll never put somebody down who's trying their hardest at something that I'm really good at. If anything, I'm going to extend my hand and be like, hey, let me help you out. Why? Because this is what I'm good at, man. And that's kind of where you're able to make that separation of like, this is my strength. I want to share it with you. And I think that kind of leads to a better earth, a better planet overall, and that we can all share the different strengths that we have, so that maybe somebody has an area of development, you can help them out with your strength and reach out and give them a hand and help them to, move up. But my next question now in regards to that exact subject is your upcoming interactive book, The Wisdom of Mental Illness, Finding Strength in Your Struggles. I want you to go a little bit deep into what that is exactly and what are you going to put in that book, Alfredo? I'm curious.
Okay, first of all, we are coming here at a great moment, because yesterday we achieved 1,500 downloads.
Nice.
Okay, then the book is in the hands of 1,500 people. Today, actually, 1,522.
Wow.
Okay, then it's a free book. I wanted to give the book as a service to the community. It's called The Wisdom of Mental Illness, Finding Strength in Your Struggle. It has 14 chapters: acceptance, shame, diagnosis, wholeness, uncertainty, taking my pills, prayer. Then they have 14 topics. And at the end of each chapter, there is a link. And you can click on the link, go to a dedicated site, and share your views and be part of a community of wisdom. Because remember, we talk about, we have experience, we have gone deep into the cave. Now we are bringing pearls of wisdom, and that wisdom should not be lost. There is a free book. It has some scientific data. It has testimonies. It has quotes. It has exercises. Okay, it can be read, all the book, or you can just read a chapter on, my problem, my issue is uncertainty. I do uncertainty. I have problems of shame. I got a diagnosis. I don't know what to do with it. Then you go to the chapter on diagnosis. But again, it's free. You can get it at my website. By the way, my website is bipolarrabbi.com. Then bipolar with 2 R's, the R of polar and R of rabbi, and rabbi with 2 B's, RABBI, bipolarrabbi.com. Then you get to my website and you get the free book. And I tell you something I am very excited about, Conrado, is that I'm offering also 2 free seminars, workshops. One actually is called The Wisdom of Mental Struggle, where we are going to learn techniques about how to transform experience into wisdom, and that's going to be on December 6th. And nice. The second workshop is going to be using positive psychology for a flourishing life, and that's going to be on December 13th. You can also register for the free workshops at my website. Okay, you can get the book on the workshops. Have a limit of 25 people for workshops. I want to make it intimate, okay, and for people to participate. Then this for me it's a service. I want to move us from into wisdom. Okay. Yeah. And by the way, I want to say, I do believe that we are going to decrease stigma when we get out there with our wisdom to the world. I think
Mm-hmm.
I don't beg for goodness. I don't beg to be treated well. Okay. I am a believer that when we go to the market of ideas with our wisdom, we're going to get the right honorable place around the table, not because we are begging it, but because we have demonstrated that no other like us can contribute to the discussion of wisdom in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then for me, this is also my advocacy. My is advocacy to wisdom.
Yeah. That's deep, man. I look forward to it. And again, the thing is, as you guys all know, the links are always in the description. So you guys will have no excuses if you want to learn more. You got to make sure that you click into the link in the description. And I'm going to make sure that I have all your socials there, Alfredo. Today was an absolute blast. And honestly, you shifted my paradigm a little bit, you know? I thought I had it a lot more figured out, but then, I have these great conversations and it really opens my mind to how much more is out there and how much more there is to explore. So I really thank you for bringing the wisdom to the table today and sharing that with us. And first and foremost, I got to say thank you for being vulnerable in your story, man. I don't think there's a lot of people that got the balls to come on and say, hey, you know what? I got that courage factor down, because you're able to share exactly what it is that you went through and how that affected you and how you came out from that deep, dark cave with the pearls of wisdom that, hey, we can all use today. So I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I just want to commend you for your work, and I hope you can do a whole lot more and make a massive impact, man. So thank you so much for coming on the show, and thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, Conrado. I mean, I felt so comfortable, dialoguing with you, and you know, everybody listening. You're unique. You're
Mm-hmm.
unique, and you have special wisdom, and don't let it go to waste. Okay, wake up tomorrow feeling with your head high. That as difficult as your journey is, okay, okay, at the bottom of the journey there is a pearl of wisdom waiting for
Mm-hmm.
you.
Excellent. No better ways or no better words to end the show with than that. Once again, Alfredo, thank you. And until the
Thank
next
you.
episode, guys, we'll see you then.